everyone, I'm Allie. Join me in creating the Helen Bracelet to go along with our Helen Earrings that came out last week. So I'm going to show you this in a bracelet form as well, which you can use to make a necklace, a bracelet, or really expand your ideas when you learn how to link things together and work with a component piece that can be stretched across a number of different varieties of jewelry types. So to get started, I have some .006 green dragon thread, and I've put a stop bead on the end of my thread. This is a stop bead that is going to come off the project eventually as you're working on it, but I want to leave about 10 inches prior to that to put on my infinite clasp. We're going to begin with the outer edge of our Helen earrings. So we started in the earring design on the interior. This time we're going to start on the exterior. I'm starting right on my 8/0 seed bead. And I want to add after that 1, 2, and 3 11/0 seed beads. After that, you're going to pick up one of your Tilas, and then we're going to do 1 11, 1 8, 1 11. That's going to be followed by another one of my Tilas, which is then followed by my pattern of 1, 2, 3 11s, 1 8/0 seed bead, and 1, 2, 3 more 11s. I'm going to let that all drop down to the end of my thread, and then I'm going to do 2 more Tila beads, and I'm using the Miyuki Tilas in that turquoise green AB color. I'm going to pick up one of my Tilas and then do my repeat of my Crystal Lab Full 11, followed by my Toho matte frosted turquoise in the 8, followed by another 11/0. One more Tila gets added on, so we're doing a total of 4 of our Tila beads to make our little box here. And then what we're going to do is add 1, 2, 3 more 11/0 seed beads. This is going to help to close up our box, going back through that first original 8/0 seed bead. You can see here how it's really wide open. Those Tilas are going to then get pushed to the middle as we progress along the bracelet. So what we're going to do instead of stepping up is we're going to actually step down. So I'm going to go back through those first 11/0 seed beads that I added, back through the first Tila, back through the combo of 11, 8, 11, through the next Tila, so I'm into the second Tila that we added, and here's where I'm going to step down. Stepping down means I'm going to go to the interior of that same Tila bead with my thread going from the first hole to the second hole, reversing direction. And then it's going to be that nice green color next to a green color, and you won't really see it. We're just going to make sure we don't have any seed beads attached and do a nice tight pull to tighten up any thread that you may have extra showing. From here, we're going to bend the Tilas in towards the interior, and we are going to then have our nice little diamond shape started. So as we bring the Tilas in towards the center, we're going to be adding 1 11/0 seed bead that is going to sit below the 8/0, where it's just the single seed beads on either side. So that gets 1 11/0, connecting the 2 together. You can see that bends them in towards the interior. And then when you are right at the spot where you have the 3 11s, 1 8 3 11s, you're going to grab one 4mm bicone. I'm using that blue rainbow color, and I'm going to go through that next Tila bead. We're going through those interior holes of the Tila. Over here on this other side, once again, grab 1 11/0 seed bead and go through the next Tila bead. From here then, you're on the opposite side, follow with another one of my 4mm crystals. I'm going to go through the last Tila, go through that 11/0, over to the second Tila, which is just going to tighten that up a little bit, and you can see you have your interior ring formed now. From here, I want to come out through my 4mm crystal, give a nice tight pull, and we'll get ready to put in our first one of our pearls. We're going to be using 6mm pearls, and I am using the sand color. It's kind of a in-between gold and silver color, really pretty sheen to it. I'm going to drop some of those out here and get ready to add my pearl in. When I add my pearl into place, what's going to happen is it pops up the center a little bit and you get a 3-dimensional look to it. So I am going to do one of my 11s, then I'm going to pick up one of my 6mm pearls, and then another one of my 11/0 seed beads. Again, I'm coming out of that 4mm crystal, and I'm going to crisscross this one. In the earrings I didn't, but this one I'm going to crisscross. So I'm coming out of that top of the right hand crystal. I'm going to go in the bottom of the left hand crystal. Make sure that pearl goes to the top of the design. Coming out through the crystal then, on the top, on the left, I'm going to add one 11-0 seed bead. Go back through the same pearl. Once you're through that same pearl, you're going to add one more 11-0 seed bead and sew through the crystal on the right-hand side, going from the bottom to the top. So you're basically doing a figure 8 full of that design. From here, we're going to go around one more time. We're going to add an 11-0 seed bead in next to the 4mm crystal, and we're going through the next Tila bead. I'm going to skip over that next 11-0 seed bead next to the Tila and go straight through the Tila bead. Make sure that thread pass goes to the interior, so just kind of lift up your 11-0 if you need to a little bit and pull that a little bit tighter. From here, coming out the 4mm or before the 4mm crystal, add an 11-0. Sew through that 4mm crystal, add an 11-0, sew through the next Tila bead. And this is repetitive, so anything that you're doing right now, you're going to repeat with each component. We're going in then, and we are going to go through the next Tila bead, ignoring the 11-0 seed bead, pulling that thread down towards the interior, making sure that they really pop up there. And then you can see I'm spinning it around, but I'm back to my start, adding in one more 11-0 seed bead and going through my crystal. This is the way that I'm going to finish this one single component. Now what we're going to do is add on to this component. So this one's completed and we're ready to go over to the next one. To get to the next one, we need to get to the 8-0 seed bead on the end of the design. To do so, coming out the crystal, I'm going to go through my 11-0 seed bead right after the crystal, through my Tila, through the next Tila bead, through the 11-0 seed bead, so you're just getting your thread into place, through your crystal, through the 11. Here's where the magic happens, we're almost there. You're going to go through your Tila, through that interior hole, and now we're going to reverse the thread. So we are going to reverse the thread so it is coming out the outer hole of the Tila. So the thread's going to go out the outer hole of the Tila, progressing, and going right back in, so that way we're coming out through our 8-0 seed bead. There we go. We have completed our first little addition here. So this is our first little component, and now we're going to continue on. So as we continue on, remember we went in and we added those seed beads. 1, 2, 3 seed beads get added to make that nice Xing effect after the 11-0 seed bead. Then you go into your Tila, your 11, 8, 11, Tila bead, redo that pattern of 3 11s, followed by 1 8, followed by 3 11s, followed by a Tila bead. After the Tila bead, we're going to make those sides match, so we're doing 11, 8, 11, followed by another Tila bead. And then the only thing we need to do here on the opposite side, add 3 more 11s, and then we're going back through that 8 that our thread is currently coming out of. Once you add all of those beads on, you can see you're right back to that starting spot. So we're right back to the starting spot where we're going to go in now and go back through a couple of our beads, turn our Tilas in, and start to do our first progression. Remember with the YouTube videos, you can always go back to the last step and watch that again. If you're thinking, oh, I need a refresher on that first step, watch it again. That is totally usable, and most people do that. So go ahead, watch that clip again, and then come back, and we're just going to continue this the whole length of the bracelet, getting in our little individual components linked together. Just to show as you're progressing, you'll notice that the bracelet will lay out flat as you have it flat on the surface. However, if you pick it up, it wants to go into that oval shape. Keep in mind that it will be laying on the flat side when you are putting on the clasp. So I currently have 8 units here that wrap around and touch on my wrist. You may want to do a 9th because you're going to have a little bit of shrink up as you go in and as we do our right angle weave and add our pearls. So that's something to keep in mind lengthwise. You can always go back to the beginning of the piece and add another unit on the beginning of the piece, but keep in mind we will have a tiny bit of shrinkage as you go in and we do our right angle weave units next around the sides of our individual components. Once you have the length of your bracelet established, it's time to add your clasp. I'm going to be using the Silver Infinite clasp along with my 10mm cabochon in that check underlit pink mist, and I'll glue that on there. I'm coming out of my last 8/0 seed bead just like I would be adding on another rotation of my Tila beads, but instead I'm going to sew through that soldered ring on my clasp after adding 3 seed beads, sew on the clasp, and then once again add 3 more of my 11/0 seed beads. Coming out then, I'm going to go back through that same 8/0 seed bead, and then I'm going to repeat that same process. So up through the 3 seed beads with my thread, through my clasp. If you are using a clasp that does not have a soldered ring, make sure to grab your wire guard and use that as well. And then after we have that through here, I'm going to come back down here, go back through those 3 after. That's 2 pieces through. It's up to you. We are not going to be coming back down this way because we are going into the right angle weave section of this. So if you want to reinforce it a 3rd time, you can certainly do that. But we're going to get ready then on the exterior here to start adding in our pearls to the design. The next thing we're going to get ready to do is actually right angle weave. And I'm coming out of that 8/0 seed bead after reinforcing the clasp, and onto your thread and needle you want to put 2 11s followed by 1 of your 6mm pearl, 1 11, 1 crystal, and 2 more 11s. We're going to be attaching to all the corners or all those 8/0 seed beads that we have in each of these Tila units. I'm going to sew from the clasp side toward the original starting side, and I'm going to repeat that same design on the opposite side. 2 11s, 1 crystal, 1 11, 1 pearl, followed by 2 11s. From here, we're going to go in and go through the 11 from top to bottom on, again, that first unit. We're going to repeat again. 2 11s, 1 pearl, 1 11, 1 bicone, 2 more 11s, and then grab onto that 8/0 there. You want to make sure when you're grabbing onto the 8/0s on the sides or the top and the bottom of the bracelet that you want to try to pull it so that the thread is on the exterior of the bead closer to the outside. From here, we're going to do the same thing. 2 11s, 1 crystal, 1 11, 1 pearl, and 2 more 11s. From here, so up through that 8/0 seed bead, as well as then through the 2 11s that you just added, through the pearl, across the whole top. So you're going through that 4mm and the 11s on both sides. So this is the right angle weave portion if you know that. And then when we come down, we're going to come down through the pearl, the 2 11s, go through the 8, go through the next 2 11s, and come out after the pearl. That finishes up our first unit, and now we're going on to the second unit. Second unit, so simple. Look back and see how we're going to connect onto it. We're going to have 1 11/0 followed by 1 of our crystals, 2 11/0s, our threads coming out toward the bottom. Grab that 8/0 seed bead that's at the bottom of the next Tila unit. Coming out of there, 2 11s, 1 crystal, 1 11, followed by 1 pearl, and then once again, 2 11s. We sew up through the 8/0 seed bead on the left-hand side of that unit. So we're just circling around. And then once I'm through there, I'm going to repeat 2 11s, followed by my 1 pearl, after my pearl is going to be 1 11, 1 crystal, 2 11s. So there's always 2 11s kind of working along the border there. Go to the top of that unit and sew through, adding in that pearl unit there. So see how these connect. Then when I'm here at the top, 2 11s, 1 crystal, 1 11, and then back down through that pearl from the previous unit. As you're down through there, you go ahead and sew the whole way down through the 11s, the 8s, come on out through the pearl. So if you know right angle weave, you get it. You see how it works. If you don't, you're going to keep with it. And what you're going to do here at the bottom is sew the whole way through the bottom 11 OC beads through the bottom crystal, the whole line. Then we're going to get to our starting spot, which is going to be at the very top of this design, always making sure when you start your next unit that you're coming out through one of the pearls. I'm going to give a nice little tight pull. And then I'm going to continue my bracelet, adding in these pearls and making this look nice and full, circling around and having that same pattern consistent throughout. Once you're done adding in your pearls, I'm just going to show it on my wrist because I think it's so pretty to show. Here is that lovely effect that you get of that nice cuff-sized bracelet. And I'm at the end here. I've added my last little right angle weave unit in with the pearls around. And I have my starter thread there in case I need extra thread. And I'm coming out just like normal through the 8 OC bead. So that's the very common trend here, is catching on to those 8 O's. And what I'm going to do is add the clasp exactly like I did on the opposite side. Adding in 1, 2, 3 11 OC beads, followed by my clasp, making sure, because there is a top and a bottom to this bracelet, that I'm putting on this other side of the push clasp correctly so it sits correct. 3 more C beads go on, back in to that 8 OC bead. I'm going to reinforce that another 2 times, and then I'm going to take my thread around the last right angle weave unit, just kind of to close it up a little bit. Because I have a thread end that starts here as well, we are going to utilize that and use that to reinforce one more time as well too. So I'm going to take my thread and needle now, come back down through the sides, holding that and pulling that thread. Then I'm going to put my needle onto my starter thread here and go around that last outer unit one more time, go in towards the center of the project and just burn the threads off. So go ahead here, grab that stop bead off, that starter bead, stop bead, starter bead. I usually call it a stop bead because it stops the beads from coming off. Go in here, thread that needle. If you need to and you have trouble threading needles, make sure to just grab a needle nose pliers here. Give a little pinch. That's going to fan out the end of the thread there, and then usually make it much easier for you to go in and to thread that needle. Also, one thing to keep in mind when you're threading needles, there is a top and a bottom to the needle. It's hard to tell, but it's helpful to know. So coming out here then with my thread and needle, I'm going to go in and reinforce that outer edge, taking my thread and needle back through that whole outer unit, which is really great for that starter thread to be incorporated to the outside too. Just adds a little bit of assurance to your piece. Coming out here then, I'm going to get those 2 thread ends back to a starter spot and simply tie those thread ends together. The last thing I'll have to do is glue my cabochon in place for my clasp. If you want to glue your cabochon ahead of time, do that so that way you make sure if you have an issue, you don't add it to your project and your piece prior to having that on, just in case there's like a glue mishap or something when you're doing that. So you can see I'm trying to sew up through, connecting those lines, and now I'm going to feed my thread back in towards the center with the starter bead and burn off those extra thread ends. I'm going to be using for my clasp some Loctite glue, and I'm just going to press down on the glue here, get a little bit of dollop there in the middle, so not a ton. Grab my cabochon, drop it in the middle, making sure I don't have any of that glue anywhere, and then do a little spin. Let that sit while it dries, and your bracelet is nice and completed. Thanks so much for joining me in creating the Helen bracelet. Remember, if you have not checked out the earrings yet to match your beautiful bracelet, the technique is a little bit different, so check out that video. Remember, always, if you use any different supplies, change up any counts of anything, please comment in the video here. That way it helps out our amazing beading community. As always, guys, subscribe if you haven't so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads. And happy beading. Stay tuned for the next inspirational video.